Ethically Speaking is a podcast of the Institute for Enterprise Ethics at the Daniels College of Business.
I'm Dan Sweeney, the director of the Institute for Enterprise Ethics at the Daniels College of Business at the University of Denver. In this edition of Ethically Speaking, we are talking with Professor Buie about the concept of integrity and how it plays out in boardrooms and executive suites in American corporations. Professor Buie led a discussion with senior executives and independent directors to help explore a variety of questions about integrity at a recent Institute for Enterprise Ethics executive breakfast. Professor Sewell is a senior member of the faculty of the Department of Business Ethics and Legal Studies at the Daniels College of Business. His courses in business ethics, professionalism, and values-based management have been favorites of students in undergraduate, graduate, and executive education classes for many years. There is probably not a corporation in the country that does not list integrity as one of its core values. After all, who could argue with wanting to have integrity, whatever it is? What do we expect when we say our company will demonstrate integrity? What kind of behaviors do we expect from our executives who say they will act with integrity? What do we think our customers look for when we tell them we will do business with them at a high level of integrity? What do our shareholders anticipate when we tell them integrity is a cornerstone of our culture? So, let's ask Professor Sewell about these questions. Buie, we had a conversation with about 30 seasoned executives here, and the topic was corporate integrity, what is it? And you provided three alternative, very meaningful definitions of the term. One had to do with honesty, one had to do with wholeness and unified character, and the third had to do with structural soundness. Mm-hmm. Can you say a little bit more about how those three definitions would apply to an executive team in a corporation or a board of directors dealing with governance issues?
Well, the first is, Dan, integrity has always been linked to truthfulness. And it is not simply about telling the truth, though it is certainly that. It is also about being true to yourself, or a company's being true to its purpose, its stated reason for being, its culture. So truth as, the first part, but also integrity is more than that. It is how something has internally integrity, like we would say the integrity of a novel or the integrity of a movie or the integrity of a symphony. It has to do with how things dovetail, how they're meshed, because the enemy of integrity is silos, it's walls that divide and separate. And then the third thing is structural. We can talk about the structural integrity of a building or a bridge, meaning that it is designed to last. And I think we don't get a full appreciation of what the word is until we give it at least those three nuances of meaning.
And it seems to me that those three dimensions are very closely related. You kind of can't take one away without the others two failing as well.
That's right. How can you be true to yourself and not tell the truth? How can you build a corporation that, serves the principles of its founding and its reason for being, and it not be integrated and in touch with itself? And then finally, the almost physical nature of structure is important. This isn't just ephemeral. This isn't just smoke and mirrors. It has a tangibility to it. About a person, we would say, you can just trust that guy. Or you can say, she is a really straightforward woman. She's a pleasure to deal with, even when we disagree. That's structural. That's not just ephemeral.
And with regard to a corporation, you might hear people saying, well, I like to deal with that company because you know what you're getting.
Exactly.
And you can trust it's going to be the same thing every time you go.
It's a very complicated world, and on the consumer side of things, I used to be able to rebuild a carburetor on the old Chevrolet that I had in high school. I can't do anything to fix a car. I have to trust people now. So I have to find straightforward people who, through time, my dealings suggest to me, those people are okay. Those people deal fair.
In these three dimensions, it seems to me, and I was thinking about this during the conversation earlier, that These are just core foundations, and they've got to be well understood and well managed at the board level.
They do. And Dan, one of the things that has bothered me as an ethicist about the way we use the word integrity, we usually use it in a passive sense, that is, someone has integrity. I much prefer it in an active sense. Integrity is what we do. Integrity is what we say. Integrity is how we hold ourselves accountable. I need it to have an active ring to it, not just he's got that. Yeah. You don't just have it, you have to live it.
It's not a box you check off.
No, it isn't a box you check off, right.
Okay, good. Buie, you said in the conversation earlier today that the key to corporate integrity is the commonality of values found in the community. Can you say a little more about that?
It's important, I think, Dan, that we understand what a company is. I mentioned Charles Handy, the great British business guru, who wrote, "A corporation is a community." And I think that's precisely right. And like any community, it is understood by its culture. And cultures are basically the values that we have and that we share. So that the commonality of purpose, the commonality of values gives content to what for a person would be the soul of a person. But in a corporation, I don't believe they have souls, but I do believe they have cultures. And when you go about creating corporate integrity, what you're doing is working on strengthening its culture. And the content of culture is its values, its principles, and making those real and explicit, giving permission to talk about them, giving permission to raise them, encouraging people to say, hey, is this in keeping with who we said we are? Is this in keeping with how we want to be known and understood? Those are questions where culture is being tended. And the enemy of strong corporate culture is a silo, is separating pieces of the company off. Oh, well, that's okay because they just do the investing, or that's okay, they're in sales, that's just how they are. That's okay, they do the financial management. A company with integrity is a company that has open communication about all parts of what it's doing.
What struck me about that as I thought about it is this community of values suggests that everybody that's associated with that company shares the same set of values and standards and aspirations.
Exactly, and that the reason they're there is because this company helps fulfill the best in them. It is a reciprocal thing. The company does well when people feel that they are included, taken seriously, and given important stuff to do. I told the Jamie Dimon story where J.P. Morgan had a unit, a trading group, that the head of the company didn't even know about, and it lost them $6.2 billion before they caught up with it. And the reason was it was completely isolated from the rest of the good management that the company had. Integrity is based in a word that means integrated, integral.
Excellent, thanks. Buie, at one point in the conversation this morning, you made the observation, and I think this is a pretty good quote or paraphrase, being a corporate executive is the most important job a person can do. Now, I'm sort of eager to hear you say more about that.
You know, I teach future executives. That's my job. And I believe that in that interchange with these people who are going to run some of the largest institutions on earth, I want them to understand how critically important that is. And that quote came from my classroom into this forum that we were having. We are on a planet with 7 going on 10 billion people. And we have got to care for it. We got to feed those folks. We got to house those folks. We got to have government structures and infrastructure to survive. And where wealth is created is in the modern corporation. And the creation of that, and I don't just mean money, I mean wealth in terms of enjoying your job. I mean wealth in terms of how you affect the environment, and I do mean wealth in terms of the creation of monetary as well as social capital. That is the very feedstock of how we as a species will continue to exist, and it must be done well. The students I teach are going to run some of the largest entities on this planet. Some of them already do. I mean, the Toyotas and the Bank of Americas, those were students that passed through my classroom. And giving them a sense that, sometimes they'll say, well, we're just in business. No, there's no just in business. Business is just so important that you've got to understand the critical nature of your leadership. And I don't know, some of them may think I'm blowing smoke, but I'm not. I worked in government at the highest levels for a while in my career. Government can't touch the impact of what corporations do and the benefits corporations provide when they're run correctly.
Your former students accepted. Do you think that's a very common point of view held among kind of the universe of business executives?
I don't know. I mean, I've certainly dealt with business executives who, basically say, hey, my job's to meet payroll, or my job is to return value to the shareholders. Just, a limited siloed notion, and I leave that at work and go home and, live the rest of my life. I believe executives are professionals. I have a degree in law, and I can't somehow think of the law as something I can take off, and leave somewhere else. I am a lawyer. I am an ethicist. And I believe the best executives are like that. They know that their role is executive leadership in the corporation, and that it's 24/7.
You shared a little vignette from one of my favorite vignettes from
Christmas Carol.
From Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, and it has to do with a conversation between Scrooge and Marley.
Yeah.
Would you share that with us?
Yes. My dad used to read to us, by the way, Dan, A Christmas Carol, 6 or 8, maybe 10 Christmases, and I can almost hear him doing this. I don't know whether it's my voice or his, but it's that scene in Ebenezer Scrooge's bedchamber. 4-poster bed, curtains hanging around it, and Scrooge wakes up, and there is a presence in the room, and he looks through the dim-lit room, and he sees his old business partner, Jacob Marley. And Marley is in rags, and he's covered in chains and money boxes and keys to safe deposit boxes and keys to businesses. And Scrooge is chagrined. And he says, Marley, why do I find you in such mean estate? You are always such a good businessman, Marley. And Jacob Marley says, business? Business? Scrooge, mankind was my business.
And I think we'll end on that note.
Ethically Speaking is a podcast of the Institute for Enterprise Ethics at the Daniels College of Business.